So, for those of you that haven't met me yet, I'm Heather, Dr. Heather Kurtzia. I am the head of the Peace and Conflict Studies Department. I also coordinate the Peace Education Program, okay? And I have always worked from an intersectional feminist perspective. Obviously, you all did all of the readings, so you already know what that means. But just in case you need a reminder, we will talk about it today, so that's fine. And I will be covering 2 different gender sessions for you in the Foundations course, okay? The first one today is a very, very basic intro to gender theory. So for some of you, this might feel like review, and that's okay. It's always good to check in. And also to realize that there are all different kinds of ways of thinking about gender. They're all contextual, and so what I'm saying about the spaces that I have lived and worked in might not hold for the spaces that you have lived and worked in, okay? And that's okay, and that's right, all right? So we have this one today, and then we'll do gender mainstreaming next week. And then I have the peace education session. So much time with me. Who's excited? Yeah, okay. So if Heather is too hard for you to say, because I know there's a lot going on in there, I also respond to Sophia. That's what my Tico and Nicaraguan friends call me, so that's fine. Sophia. And I know that this is difficult in a group so large, but as a peace educator, it's really important to me that I know who's in the room. I know that you obviously all know everyone else's names, yes? No? What? What have you been doing? All right. So what we're going to do is a quick round of names, but along with your name, the thing I would also like to hear is your preferred gender pronoun. What does that mean? In English, we have gender in our sentences, in our ways of expression. We assign gender to people. So we use words like she, he, his, hers, okay? Him, her. Those are gender pronouns, all right? So what I'm asking for you is to tell me your name and your preferred gender pronoun, how you want people to talk about you, okay? We have a habit, at least in the cultures that I have been a part of just assuming that we know someone's gender, right? And that's not necessarily true, okay? So we want to allow people the opportunity to define the gender for themselves and to tell us what they prefer, all right? So it's your name plus your preferred gender pronoun. So for example, my name is Heather, and I prefer she, her, okay? Heather, she, her. In order to make it quick, that's all we're doing. Name, pronouns, okay? You'll notice up there that I put he, she, they, z. There are, at this point, I've seen at least 20 different options, okay? If you have an option that I haven't said or isn't listed there, feel free to tell us what that option is, okay? Questions about that? Anyone brave enough to start with the introductions? Great, okay. So I'll just ask you to say your name and your pronoun, and then I'm going to just move us through the group, all right? Okay, go ahead. I'm just going to hold on to the mic. It's a power thing. I got to keep the power.
All right. Marie Poole, she, her.
Yeah, people would like to see your beautiful faces, so Marie Poole, she, her. Okay.
Mary Sander, she, her.
Shushmita, she, her.
Red, he, him.
Yoshita, she, her.
Ashita, she, her.
Kari, she, her.
Chester, he, him.
Amos, he, him.
Reed, he, him.
Piotr, he, him.
Yumi, she, her.
Tessel, she, her.
Elise, she, her.
Orion, she, her.
Maria, she, her.
Lucia, she, her.
Shayna, she, her.
Z, she, her. Shohoko, she, her.
Nargiza, she, her.
Lily, she, her.
Natalia, she, her.
Bota, she, her.
Emma, she, her.
Hugo, she, her.
Gary, he, him. Paul Chai, he, him.
Yoshiko, she, her.
So, he, him.
Aya, she, her.
Sai, he, him.
Alex, he, him.
Sorry, Marisa, she, her.
Amin John, he, him.
Navid, he, him.
Potter, he, him.
Mika, she, her. Patricia, she, her.
Alberto, he, him. Hero, he, him.
Lena, she, her.
Russ, he, him. Alonso, he, him. Argyris, he, him.
Diego, he, him.
Keisha, she, her.
Isabella, she, her.
Charlotte, she, her.
Kate, she, her.
Landon, he, him.
Miranda, she, her. Kayla, she, her.
Sarah, she, her.
Aaliyah, she, her.
Katie, she, her.
Carolyn, she, her.
Ellen, she, her.
John, he, him.
Kate, she, her. Sadgi, she, her. Inge, she, her.
Suhe, she, her. Saskia, she, her.
Marion, she, her.
Akira, he, him.
Rodrigo, he, him.
Sahil, he, him.
Nikki, she, her.
Huyen, he, him.
Julius, he, him.
Jacinta, she, her.
Shine, she, her.
Savannah, she, her.
Gloria, she, her.
DJ, he, him.
James, he, him.
Mia, she, her.
Joya, she, her.
Helene, she, her. Renee, she, her.
Alexandra, she, her.
Jamila, she, her. Greshma, she, her.
Lakshmi, she, her.
Taiki, he, him.
Selena, she, her.
Ajanti, she, her.
Trisna, he, him.
Elena, she, her.
Ramcha, he, him.
Jacqueline, she, her. Jerry, she, her.
Tina, she, her.
Jahan, she, her.
Hania, she, her.
Masa, he, him.
Jisa, she, her.
Sometimes it's tough, no worries.
Alice, I prefer Z. Z? Yeah. Michelle, Z.
May, she, her.
Julie, she, her.
Varsha, she, her.
Irina, she, her.
Angel, she, her.
Alyssa, she, her.
Hannah, she, her.
Naoko, she, her.
Irma, she, her.
He, he, and him. Yong, he, him.
Santra,
she, her.
Federica, she, her, he, they, they, whatever makes people comfortable.
Tintin, she, her.
Corinne, she, her.
Asia, she, her.
Ferensta, she, her.
Camille, she, her.
Alexis, she, her.
Amr, he, him.
Samava, he and him.
Maria Teresa, she, her.
Uzma, she, her.
All right. Thank you all for participating in that. First of all, to my friends with difficult names who are staying strong, we will get there. Thank you for your efforts. For those that have already given up, tragedy. Come on, we can do this, okay? If we can't learn our names here, where can we? It's good practice for us. Second of all, shout out to my friends who were at the bar last night in the back row. I was there too, so I know. I appreciate you showing up and being on time, even if you are back row people. I understand. Okay. Did we miss somebody? Somebody came in? Oh, we can't miss anyone. That would be unfair. All right. I think we're over here.
Hi, I'm Chaturi, she, her.
Thank you. Okay, great. So, our goals for today are to understand the social construction of gender as different to sex. Okay? That's step one. Step two, understand dualistic thinking. If you haven't heard that word before, it's okay. That's why we're here. Understand intersectional analysis, just the baby steps of it, but to have an idea of what that means. And to understand that gender equality is about the liberation of all people, not just women. Okay? Gender does not equal women. So if you had a chance to do the readings, you'll see that there was a lot of talk in there about men and masculinity. That's an integral part of this project. Okay? And I always want to keep that in our minds. So, here's my friend, my only friend, the genderbread person. Hands up if you've seen this before. Okay, a few. All right, good to know. So, our genderbread person will help us to understand 4 different categories that we sometimes get confused, okay? Our first category, and Elliot, Pink Brain, Blue Brain reading, talks about this one the most. It's biological sex, okay? She makes what I think is an error in her writing, in that she says that there's a sexual binary, all right? You're either male or female. I would argue, and gender theory would argue, that that is not the case, actually, okay? That everything is on a spectrum. So, we know that statistically, 1 in 1,000 people is born intersex, meaning that their genitalia is not completely male or female, okay? So when we talk about sexual, like sex in that binary, we're negating the experience of that entire group of people. 1 in 1,000 may not seem like a lot in this space, but in the world it certainly adds up, okay? So that's our biological sex. So we can be more towards female, or more towards male, or somewhere in between, okay? Then we have our gender identity, this one. This is how we intellectually and emotionally feel about ourselves in terms of our gender, okay? So a person can be born with the biological sex female, but have the gender identity that's more male. Intellectually, emotionally, that person feels more manly, okay? It's different than the body, okay? Then we have gender expression, also different. Gender expression is how we present ourselves to the world, okay? It's the way that we arrange ourselves according to our cultural norms that can be more feminine or more masculine. Example, I was born female biologically, my gender identity is actually somewhere in between. I was raised mostly by my dad. I can do plumbing. I can fix cars. I can lift stuff. Right? I present or feel more masculine, actually. If you look at my Canadian context, my way of being in terms of gender identity is more towards the middle. However, it's hot here, and I hate pants. So my gender expression is quite feminine. I generally always wear dresses, okay? My gender identity, how I intellectually and emotionally feel, is different from my gender expression, okay? Fourth category, completely unrelated to the other three, is attraction, okay? Which we sometimes refer to as sexuality, but that can be confusing because sexuality can also refer to your biological sex. English sucks, I know, sorry. So, in terms of attraction, we can be more attracted to men, males, masculinity, or women, females, femininity, or nobody. The term for that is asexual. There's a whole bunch of other terms that you are welcome to explore in your own time that we don't have time for here. Pansexual, demisexual, bisexual, okay? It's a spectrum, okay? A person can have any gender identity and be attracted to anything from masculine to feminine, or all, and both, and nothing, okay? They're not connected. This is, for some people, the hardest part of gender theory. So I know you have questions. Is anyone brave enough to ask one? Yep. Right, because gender is socially constructed, okay? It is not by the nature of having a male body or a female body that one then has certain particular skills, right? It's an association that we make based on our cultural context, okay? In the Canadian context that I was raised in, plumbing and lifting things is socially constructed to be associated with men and masculinity. That may not be the case in other cultural contexts, right? I saw another hand, go ahead. Okay, so let's talk about the word stereotype, because this is really important. What is a stereotype when related to gender? It is the social construction of an idea of what it means to be either male, female, masculine, or feminine. Okay? It's not real. When we say socially constructed, what we mean is that it is mediated. Ross in the back. It is mediated, okay? So you receive that message throughout your life, through your parents, through your friends, through the actual media, movies, songs, okay? It's not a fact. I'm looking around because I'm looking for the faces who are like, I'm pretty sure it's a fact. Okay. So, yes, in some spaces, things are changing. Yes. In some spaces, they are not. Right? And that's why I keep always referring to context, because there is no single truth about this. It's not that stereotypes are like this, and masculinity is like this, and femininity is like that. Okay? It always depends. All right? Yep. Yep. For sure, but you might be like taking a leap to where we're not ready to go yet. I am with you. But okay, to refer to what you're talking about, even if the more that we understand genetics, the more complicated the picture gets, right? We know, and Elliot is trying, like, let's be clear about what she's trying to do. She's trying to sell a book to parents, right? So I'm not in any, just because I give you a reading doesn't mean that I'm like, yes, this person understands. No, it's so we interrogate what we read, right? We question what we read, we see if it makes sense to our context, and if it doesn't, then we try to figure out why, okay? Genetically, we have XX, XY, XXY, right? There's all kinds of variation, and then within the genome, the more that we learn, the more that we can see that it's what's going on within the genome that's more important than actually the XY or the XXY necessarily, okay? We are babies in the understanding of our biology. Like, it's really important to recognize. It's like, I personally think that we're gonna figure out so much about genetics that it's gonna be like Galileo and the sun. Like, we've got it all wrong, and eventually we'll have better information. But right now, yes, it is more complicated. Yes, it is socially constructed, in my opinion, although people will debate that, and it's not. What I'm trying to present here today is sort of like the UN accepted model of gender theory. Be that what it may. Okay. Any other questions about this? All right, let's keep going. Where's my little clicker? Oh no. Okay. So, what I was just talking about was how these things around gender are actually on a spectrum. They're not one or the other, right? They're on a continuum. But we have a history, particularly within European, which then became settler and colonial academic thinking, okay? And it's a history of dualistic thinking. It means that we separate things into two categories when they are not necessarily just two categories. A perfect example of this would be around race. If you look historically at the US, Canada, Australia, how do you define race? So different countries have decided what it means to be black based on some kind of weird percentage, right? And the reality is that in those spaces, if you have a black parent and a white parent, so in that case you are half and half, both, doesn't matter, you are assigned the label black because the society splits into black and white. Traditionally, this is also changing, right? All of these things are changing, okay? So dichotomies in the case of what we're talking about, feminine and masculine, woman and man. And if you had a chance to read the Peterson article, yeah, everybody loved it for sure, okay. You would have noticed that she also made reference to other things that we've split up that are somehow related to one category or the other. So we separate nature and culture, okay? Women are associated with nature. This goes back to religious practices, right? Women were the spiritualists, the druids, related more to pantheistic and nature-based spirituality, okay? And men were associated with higher culture, the church, the written word. And also, following with that, emotion and reason. Once again, traditionally, the idea being men are rational, intelligent beings, women are emotional and unreliable. Do you see what is happening here with this dualistic thinking, right? I want you all to take a minute and try to add to that list. Think of other dualisms that might be specific to your context, or you might think of as more international. Strong and weak is an excellent example. Thank you. Yep. Right. Humanities, maths, and science. One always traditionally funded more than the other. Right. Passive and active. Or we might change active even to aggressive. Ooh, expressive and stoic. Just in case, can someone define the word stoic? It's a hard one. Stoic is to be non-expressive, not showing emotion. Yeah. Because that's what I heard from Costa Rican man saying that if you see someone driving slow, it's a woman driving. Right. Okay. And that. So this fast drivers versus slow drivers thing is related to that active or aggressive versus passive thing, right? So those dichotomies are linked. Also notice an interesting thing that she said there. It's if you see a slow driver. So what do we notice? We notice the extreme, and all the other people who are doing what's normal in the middle don't get noticed. Those women don't count, right? I saw a hand, yeah. Peaceful and violent, Okay, here we go. All right. So within the category of female, we have a dualism that is written about a lot called the virgin-whore dichotomy. Okay? So the idea is that, like the drivers, women can either be sweet, virtuous virgins until marriage, of course, in which case then they change completely overnight. Or, what? Is that not? Sorry. Or, right, within the feminine, you can be this whore figure, this Mary Magdalene figure, if you are familiar with the Christian church, right? And there's no one in between. You're one or the other, okay? So then if we talk about sexuality between the masculine and the feminine, there is no whore category in the masculine, right? It's the lack of that. Men's sexuality traditionally is just their sexuality. There's no need to label it. It's positive, right? Some guys over here are like, what? She's okay. You can we can bring that up later. It's all right. Okay. Okay. Other examples? Do I have somebody over here of dichotomies? Yep.
We touched on this a little bit already. Nurturing versus aggressive. Care versus.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Nurturer, protector. Well, and that's the thing, right? So the nurturer is relation to, let's put it in terms of childcare, right? The nurturer cares for the child, and then the protector uses violence or aggressivity to protect the child, right? Discipline? I mean, that I think is really culturally constructed because in some societies, men do play an active role in discipline, and in some societies, women also play that role. It's part of the parenting, and it depends on how much each gender is involved in parenting in the social context. Anyone over here? Yep. Home and work. Uh-huh. This is super important. Take note. Okay? So who's at home? The feminine. Who's at work? The masculine. Mm-hmm. Okay, this is actually related to this homework thing. Okay? This idea that women are rooted, right? And they look inward to the family, inward to the home. And men are not rooted. They look outward, right? Outward to the future, outward to other spaces. Okay? Historically, we can think about explorers. Although there were female explorers, we generally don't hear about them in history. We hear about male explorers. Right? Can you repeat what you said into the mic because some people didn't hear you?
Okay, thank you. I said in the society where I come from, women are more prone to remembering actually where they are coming from. That is, they can easily remember their home, their family, but the man is more concerned with where he's going to or what new tasks he has ahead of him.
Okay, anyone else? Yep, Red, go for it.
I think it's just culture and context specific with somebody mentioned discipline. Kind of an impression I was under was a little different that, let's say a mom and dad situation. Mom's home when the kids misbehave, she has to punish them. She's the bad guy. She's the one they always have to deal with. She's the one they always have to negotiate with kids and HR. Dad's out working. He comes home on the weekends or at night, wants to play ball with them or take them out to get hot dogs. Oh, Dad's
Right.
here. And he's the good guy. He never has to be the punisher, the bad guy.
Right. So this is perfect, exactly what I'm talking about with cultural construction. Okay? It depends on the particular family context. Salut. Okay? And also the cultural context. Okay? So this isn't a thing about, yes, that's how it is, or no, that's not how it is. It's like that's how it is in your context, or maybe perhaps particularly with your family. That is true about the construction of masculinity and femininity in that space. Right? Okay? Yep. Leader, follower. Okay. Yep. Right, because there's this thing about adult and infantilized. Okay? The man decides, right? Because he has reason and intellect, okay? Therefore he leads, okay? And the feminine follows because the feminine is emotional and irrational, right? And so what is emotional and irrational? In English, it's the terrible twos. Toddlers. Toddlers are emotional and irrational. Yeah? 2-year-old kids go, I want it, I want it, I want it, I want it. And that's all that matters, right? And when they don't get it, then they freak out. Okay? Toddlers are emotional and irrational. And women are emotional and irrational. Okay? And this is what the Peterson article is arguing about feminization. Okay? And the devaluation of feminization. You don't have to be in a female body to be feminized. Right? There's a spectrum of feminization, and it's related to all of the different categories that make up our identities. Okay? I want to bring up one last dichotomy that links to the housing thing and the roots versus explorer thing. And it's private and public. Okay? In your private space, so let's call that our homes, we are allowed to be emotional. And we are allowed to act more naturally. Okay? But when we enter out into the public space, we have to be stoic, right? We don't show emotion in public. In most cultures internationally, there are very few emotions that you can show without social judgment or punishment. The most common that you're allowed to show, what are you allowed to show emotionally in public without social judgment? Happiness? Depends on the culture. Depends on the culture of grief. There's one other one that's generally tolerated. Anger. You can be happy or angry in public, but all the other emotions in a lot of cultures are relegated to the private space. Okay? So what does that mean about the public space? Intolerance for what? Okay. Whose emotions? Yeah. Right. So people are, yeah. Mm. Yeah, I hear you. Okay, I'm hearing all of this, and it's important and valid points, but we've moved away from what I was trying to get at. So I want to just back it up, okay? Public and private. The things that are private are emotion and being natural, not pretending. So what is the public space value? The masculine. If you want to engage in the public sphere, it will be to your benefit to gender express yourself, right? Not gender identity, not biological sex, gender express yourself in a way that is construed as masculine. You can look at male politicians who have cried publicly. President Trump, in a tweet, I think, referred to the 8 times that Obama cried in public. Let's note that one of them was after the Sandy Hook shooting where 53 children were killed, okay? It was unacceptable for the President of the United States to cry at the sight of the murder of 50 children, okay? According to Trump, and, you know, let's face it, Trump says things because a lot of people agree with them, right? He's not some crazed person out on his own. He's representative of a segment of society that agrees with these points of view, okay? Hillary Clinton, and I know I'm using American examples, and this is because one of the great tragedies of our international society is that we all tend to be familiar with American examples. Sorry. Okay? If you take any of my classes, we'll get into more international ones, and specifically ones from each person's home context. But in this space, because we have limited time, I'm going with like the ones that unfortunately most of us will know, okay? How does Hillary Clinton gender express herself? As masculine. Right? She's stoic. Hillary Clinton has not cried very much in public. And the woman has had reason to. Okay? Okay? She knows that to be in the public space, she has to present, gender express as masculine to be successful in that space. Okay? Last comment on this one. Yep. Oh yeah, you can't win. No. Sorry, did I give the wrong impression? No, there's no right way. Yeah, she is criticized for being too masculine, right? Like the famous Hillary Clinton pantsuit. She's always in pants with a jacket. That's her thing. If she wore skirts like Sarah Palin, she would be criticized for that. Right? We haven't found the right way yet in the North American context. And when I say North America here, I'm excluding Mexico. Disculpas. Okay. I want to do an activity to make this a little bit more complex, okay? Because these issues are not simple, all right? Does everyone have a piece of paper and a pen? If you don't, I have pieces of paper and markers because I used to teach 5th grade. Okay. Yep. Here we go. I'm going to put it here, and everybody can just come get what they need. Anyone over there? Yeah? I'm going to take some papers. Borrow from friends. Sharing means caring. No worries. Pass around if you need. Got it? Okay. Thanks. Red got coffee, but not instructions. It's okay, I'm going to explain. That's a name I'm going to remember. Maybe we should all just name ourselves by some kind of physical attribute. What could possibly go wrong? Okay. Before we get into this, don't copy yet, because it'll be a mistake. Wait for instructions. I want to recognize that if you have not been reading about these issues or familiar with these issues, this can be very confronting. I understand that. And what's important today for me is that everyone walks away with curiosity. Okay? You can disagree with everything I'm saying, and that's fine, as long as you go research it. All right? The point of being here is to explore new ideas, all right? And so if you don't agree with these ideas, why not? What research have you done? What facts do you have that support your point of view? And if you want to come and discuss that research and those facts with me, I will have those conversations. But we have to be careful about cognitive dissonance. Does anyone know what that is? Okay. There are 20 of the most common cognitive biases that we all have. They are things that our brain kind of does without us even knowing it. All right? One of them is cognitive dissonance. What it means is we are always more likely to accept that which we already agree with. Okay? So when we read evidence or research, if it doesn't fit within our worldview, we are more likely to deny it. Okay? And it doesn't matter which side of any kind of spectrum you're on. It goes like this for everybody. We like what we already like, and we don't like what we don't. Okay? So we have to make efforts when we feel ourselves doing that to push a little bit further and go, okay, come on. Why do I really disagree with this? What research do I have? What facts do I know? And if I don't know enough, go find them. Okay? This is confronting, it is difficult, and it is also not only intellectual work, it is social and emotional work. Yeah, university, emotional work, welcome. Okay. So, what we are going to do now is an activity called the Flower of Power. I drew this in Spanish like 10 years ago, and I've been using it ever since, so we're all just going to learn to be bilingual, okay? Flowers are hard for me. I'm not an artist. So, what I'd like you to do is first to think about all of the ways that in your cultural context you divide yourselves, okay, in terms of identity. So in New Zealand, where I lived for 5 years, some of the categories that I've seen that people use to divide themselves in that space, including myself, because I'm a permanent resident there: race, religion, gender, social class, language, sexuality, education, bodily capacities. What do I mean by bodily capacities? If we're able-bodied or disabled in some way, right? Fun thing about New Zealand, they like to ask where you went to high school. Your high school partly defines your social class in New Zealand. And also, according to a lot of Kiwis, defines something about you somehow. You'll be a certain type of person if you went to a particular high school. Okay, am I right? Thank you. Okay. So every context has different things. A big one in Canada is language, right? What's your first language? What are some other examples from other contexts? Yeah, also, so it's not just whether or not you went to university, it's which university you went to, yeah? We're here first? Yeah. Okay, so we have a few different things there that I'm pulling out, because we have ethnicity, right? So the ethnic group that you came from, but also like geographical space within a country, like urban and rural, can have a huge impact factor, you were going to say? Yeah. Yeah. If you're from the US, your state. If you're from India, it's my understanding that that also plays a huge role. Religion, yeah. Political aspiration? Yeah, depending on the country, like the political party that you belong to, Nicaragua is a huge example of this, right? People define themselves by their political party or their status, yeah. And there was behind you, yeah. Accent, yes, very much so, depending on the country. Yeah, Hiro? Yep, for sure. Married and not married, or we can extend that also to family type. So depending on your context, it can have a huge influence, for example, if you're a single parent or a partner in a partnership, or if you're in a gay marriage, right? All of these things. So your family type, here. Yeah, tribe or clan or caste also. Do people here say caste or caste? Caste. I got in a fight with this with another woman lately. So I'm like, I'm checking it out. This is a good survey. Okay, here. Yeah, sports teams, depending on. And sports teams are really interesting because they're often also related to religion or politics. Yeah? Interesting study, totally unrelated to what we're talking about, but I think it's important. During the lead up to the 2016 US elections, where was the one space that Republicans and Democrats were able to have cordial conversations about politics? Sports team fan pages. The identity of being a fan of the same team was more important than the identity of being left or right politically. And so because they had this super identity, like we're both for the Cubs, there was a level of respect in the conversations that didn't really exist anywhere else. Amazing. Right? Amazing. Okay, yep. Subcultures, help me. Okay, yeah. Right, okay. For sure, depending on, like say you were doing the context of my poor, sad Canadian high school, those subcultures, hippies, druggies, sports people, book people, right? Those things were very important in terms of power and privilege within that very small context. Yes, okay. All right, yep, one more. Mm-hmm. Age of marriage. Yeah. Age of marriage and just age. How many times do you see intergenerational groups of people that are not families hanging out? It's another way we divide ourselves, right? Okay. I said the last one. I'm doing two more and that's it. Okay.
I'm sorry, I just want to add up to what you said about from city or from rural
Mm-hmm.
area. People who are from capital cities are sometimes particular, like so whether you are from the other city, you're still not belonging to that community.
Right. Okay. This is an important point. A lot of countries have like power cities, right? And you may be from another city in that country, but if you're not from the power city, doesn't matter. Yeah. Okay. Good point. And there was one more here. Yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, for sure. For sure. Criminal background is a big deal in a lot of countries. And what's amazing is how in a lot of countries it doesn't matter what you did. It's just that you were found guilty of something. So historically, if you look at people who have been involved in protests, for example, right? They've been arrested and convicted for participating in a nonviolent protest, and then they have a criminal background. Like if you do the check, all that comes up is, yes, they have a criminal record. It doesn't tell you why, right? Okay. So now we have a whole bunch of ideas for categories, ways that we divide ourselves. In peace and conflict studies, we call these fault lines because they're the things that always exist, and given the wrong circumstances, they can create an earthquake, right? They can create violent conflict, okay? What I want you to try to do is draw a flower. We're not in art class. There's no judgment. Don't make fun of your friends, okay? The key to the flower is that it has to have at least 6 petals on the inside, okay? I've done this activity with up to 20. It's too much. Don't go there, okay? But at least 6 on the inside. And then you need to notice that on the outside level, there's a petal that lines up with each one, okay? So I have an inner petal and then an outer petal, all right? If they don't line up, it doesn't work, okay? This is more difficult than you think, okay? Trust me, okay? Minimum of 6 inner petals, and then another bigger petal on the outside that lines up with each one. Questions? Here we go. Somebody's definitely going to ask me for another piece of paper. I know this, okay? We are not writing anything. Thank you for that clarification. There's so many wonderful artists. I'm so impressed. Okay. Oh my goodness, this is so great. Almost everyone is got it, and the ones that don't, it's my fault. And it's my fault because I didn't tell you that the inner petal has to be big enough to write in. Oh, tragedy. Bad instructions, teacher Heather. You can write little words, it's okay. Or you can make a legend at the side and just put numbers inside. It's okay, it's okay. Now, once you have those petals, I want you to think about a very particular context, okay? It can be a city or a country, all right? But one particular context, preferably one that you are very familiar with and have lived in for a substantial amount of time, okay? And I want you to think about what categories, which fault lines, play important roles in terms of power and privilege in that space, okay? These are different depending on the context, okay? So in that particular context, which things play a role? Out of all the ones we discussed, or the ones that matter in your context, they don't have to be the ones that I've put up there, okay? In the inner petal. The categories that matter in the context that you are thinking about. If you're trying to think about which categories matter, think about the people in power. What are the things that they seem to have in common? Think about the people in the media. What are the things that they seem to have in common? Generally, those are indicators of the categories that have power and privilege in a particular context. And if you didn't put gender down, I'm super curious to hear why not. Okay, so once you have your categories, and I want to point out, this is not science, okay? This is not research, this is not facts. This is our own opinion about our own context. I want you to think of the group within that category that has more power and privilege, okay? So, for example, if I'm going to talk about Canada, I would say that the race in Canada that overarchingly, not within Quebec, for example, overarchingly has the most power and privilege, the race would be white, the family type would be heterosexual nuclear. Nuclear means 2 parents and 2 kids, probably. The gender would be masculine. The language would be English. The capacity would be able-bodied, and the social class would be upper, mid to upper, and religion would be of Christian heritage, but atheist. That's what we got, okay, in my context in Canada. In your context, it could be completely different. It depends on what you're thinking about, okay? For example, if I was thinking about this in terms of Nicaragua, I would not even put race necessarily on the flower, okay? Because Nicaraguans consider themselves nicas, mestizos, all mixed. But I would include colorism because the color of your skin matters, right? So lighter skinned nicas tend to be looked upon more favorably than darker skinned nicas, even though they're of the same race and ethnicity. And this in Latin America is called colorism. It's different than racism. Okay? So we're thinking about who are the people that have power and privilege in our context. Yep. So when we're talking about who has power and privilege, we want to be thinking about the same things that I mentioned before. Who tend to be the politicians, the ones leading? Who are the CEOs of companies? Who are the people in the media? Brazil is an amazing example of this. 52% of the population in Brazil is black, and yet less than 10% of news presenters are. Okay. You're writing in the outer petal. The groups that have more power and privilege get written in the outer petal that's linked to the inner petal. Hence the, yeah. Do you want me to do an example on the board? I can do it. Here's an example. My inner petal says race. My outer petal, in the Canadian context, I said white. Also culturally defined because race is also socially constructed. Race is not real. That's a whole other issue, and if I just freaked you out, we can talk about it at another point. But yes, okay? All right, here's the confronting part. Remember, this is not science, this is not research, this is our own opinions and impressions of the context in which we have lived, okay? The next step is to color in the petal if you feel that you are a part of that group. So, in the Canadian context, I am white. Now, depending on, I might not feel like completely part of that group or completely not part, in which case you can color half of it. That's okay too. It's your own impression of the power and privilege in your context. What you should have at the end is a physical, artistic representation of your own beliefs about your power and privilege in your own context. This isn't necessarily real, okay? It doesn't define us, okay? It doesn't determine our prospects or opportunities necessarily. It's our own impression of what's going on around us. There are all kinds of examples of people who were born with very little intersectional power. This is what we're calling this. Intersectional power and privilege, who have become extremely successful. Okay? And there are a lot of people who were born with all kinds of intersectional power and privilege and have not been successful. This is a societal, social construction. It's not about the individual. Okay? Questions about this? Yep. Okay. So depending on your context, your family and friends, who people have access to is super important. Okay? So she used the word nepotism. And it's one of those who you know things, right? But who you know and who will help you is often related to intersectional power and privilege, right? Yeah. You know, there are all kinds of examples of people who may not have been the most skilled or the most intelligent, who have done very, very well, right? Because of where they were born and to who they were born. If you believe that you are a great success story because you only got $6 million on your 21st birthday, that is a special kind of intersectional power and privilege. Yeah, okay? Those are some extra special bootstraps. For those of you that aren't familiar with bootstraps, there's this phrase in North America that you pull yourself up by your bootstraps, meaning that you do it on your own, okay? You have achieved all of your greatness independently. I would argue very few of us actually are successful on our own. We have parents or friends that help and support us. Everyone is in a context. No man is an island, okay? No one exists completely as an individual.
I just want to point out that the phrase "pull yourself up by the bootstraps" originated as a joke. It's making fun of the idea that you can pick yourself up by yourself. You think about you can't pick yourself up by your shoes. But it's turned into people actually adopted it sincerely as, oh, you got to do all on your own.
Yeah.
Pretty much an individual thing.
Because English is crazy. Yes. Okay, thank you. That is an excellent point and important. Okay. I would like to take a break now. We're going to do things a little bit differently today. We're going to come back here again. All right. And I'm going to give you, normally you take how long for break, Amr? 20 minutes? 20 minutes. But I know I'm horrible. I'm going to put homework in the break. Okay? What I'd like you to do is take that time to share with some of your colleagues about something that maybe surprised you about this Flower of Power activity. Because all of your flowers will look different, because all of your contexts are different, and it's important that we recognize that, okay? So we'll come back at 10 past 10, and hopefully you have all learned amazing things from your colleagues. Yay!